Hello and welcome to Endurance Minded. It's the podcast that aims to redefine what it means to reach our full potential by exploring how movement and mindset impacts our lives and how we can all work to show up as the best versions of ourselves. I'm your host, Taylor Thomas, founder at TEC. And before we kick this episode off, I have an all call for people in the health and wellness space that are ready to start their business or take their existing business to the next level. If you're a coach, a personal trainer, a dietitian, nutritionist, or anyone who has a passion for helping others reach their full potential, this is for you. The Growth Circle, TEC's Business Accelerator, focuses on three main areas to help you grow and scale a business. The first is revenue. TEC helps business owners accomplish their revenue goals in less time to build a sustainable, profitable, and scalable business. Next, we focus on client acquisition and retention. We provide you with the confidence, resources, and skills to attract and retain your ideal client. And last, and most importantly, we focus on community and collaboration. Building a profitable coaching business shouldn't be lonely. Build with a team of driven entrepreneurs just like you that will support and inspire you. If you're hungry to be a part of a community that delivers inspiration and mentorship, as well as flattens the learning curve to building your business, I want to invite you to apply today for the Growth Circle, TEC's Business Accelerator, and let us help you build a wildly profitable coaching business. So let's talk about celebrating your wins, specifically small wins. And I want to start by opening up the conversation around why is this something that's important? It's something we hear a lot. It's certainly something that people have told me. Admittedly, it's something that I've struggled with. And I think that really is what's prompted today's conversation. This is something that I've historically not been good at, but have recognized through my own work and the work with the people that I have the opportunity to engage with, that it really is a critical aspect of the ability to be happy, the ability to stay in the game, so to speak, the ability to stick with it and see things through. And so why is it important to celebrate the small wins? And boiled down, it's really a function of that it is really, really hard to accomplish our goals. It's really, really hard to take steps towards our full potential, to push ourselves, to do things that are challenging, to take ourselves out of our comfort zones, to build relationships with people that stretch us. The list goes on. In whatever capacity, in whatever scenario, we are working to strive. Ultimately, that thing is very, very hard. And as high achievers, it is very challenging, I have found, for us to see the forest for the trees and to not just hyperfixate on the thing that we want. And so what that does is it diminishes the process. It whitewashes everything between where we're at now and when we ultimately reach our end goal. The thing that we set out to accomplish. And I'll break down what that is and some of the ways that can be expressed. But what I want to start with again is, why is this important, and what's wrong with just focusing on the end goal? What's wrong with just using the carrot on the end of the stick to be our primary motivator? And again, I think it starts with the fact that this thing is really, really hard. And the path to our full potential is probably more brutal than we imagine it to be. And so at a very kind of baseline human core function, we need something to keep us going, because what we have set out to do is probably much more challenging than we've realized, and is going to cost a lot more and take a lot more from us than we recognize. And so if we don't have the ability to recognize the small wins, and more importantly, to celebrate them, then that thing is going to be even exponentially harder than it already is. And So again, this is a very simple statement, but I think ultimately it comes down to the fact that the thing is super, super hard. And the fact that it already is so challenging produces the need for something to happen between now and when we reach our goal. And I think that is really, again, these small victories. Again, just to reiterate, the other reason that it's important, and I think why we need to celebrate our wins, is because the timeline on these things is always more dramatic than we imagine them to be, and the cost is always much higher. So let's take, for example, that we're going to use an example in the fitness space, right? I want to accomplish a big goal. I want to do, an iron distance triathlon, and I've set this as a goal, and it's something I believe I can do, but it's going to stretch me, right? I don't have the ability right now. I'm going to need to train for it. I'm going to need to prepare. I'm going to need to dial in my nutrition. I'm going to need to dial in my my equipment. I'm going to need to do a lot of prep races and big workouts leading up to that. And so we set that as a goal. And ultimately, the real fact of the matter is that the process to get there is going to take much longer and is going to cost much more. Now, the cost can be a financial cost, which is certainly a part of that. It can also be a cost from what we have to sacrifice, right? We're going to have to sacrifice time, specifically time with our family, time with other endeavors, time with other hobbies. There is a cost associated with that, again, from a financial perspective, but also a very real cost from a bandwidth perspective, what we have to give up. And that cost, I promise you, is much, much higher than we imagine it to be. And so when we are paying that price from the perspective of a continued commitment to that thing and the very real price of cost and time, or money and time, then we need something to continue to keep us in the game, because the time between now and when we finish that event is a long period of time. And so it's hard to stay in it if we don't celebrate the wins. And I use the fitness example, could literally use an example of any area in your life. If we pick business, the time between now and the success that you want is going to take much longer, going to cost you much more than you recognize. If you're starting a business, if you're in the middle of a big project, if you're acquiring new clients, if you're like whatever that is, I promise you it is longer and more costly than we think. Even if we're operating on a scale that is, we think we're being aggressive, it's still more than we recognize. And then the other piece of why it's important to celebrate our wins is because there's always something else, right? So this the right time adage that we use, where this isn't the right time, but there's a season where I can rest, and there's a season when I can celebrate, and I can recommit, and I can do all these things that I'm not doing now. The fact of the matter is that time doesn't exist. So this right time, this hypothetical version of your life where you can one day take a beat and celebrate and refocus and recommit, and that doesn't happen, because what will happen is life will continue to happen. Things will continue to come up. There will be a different season with different challenges and a new set of skills that need to be acquired. And I'm not saying that to paint the picture that life is brutal, or that there is a relentless quality to it. But the fact of the matter is that it does keep happening, and there will be another thing. There'll be something behind this thing. And so again, when it comes to celebrating our small wins, I don't believe that there is a season outside of where you're at right now when it makes more sense to recognize the opportunity in front of you, recognize what you've accomplished, and celebrate that in some meaningful way. Because I don't think that time is going to come when it looks and feels any different, right? So let's expand that, or use a specific example to say, I'm really busy right now, and now, but when I get done with X, Y, and Z project, or when I get done with this thing, then I'll have time to exercise. I can get back in the gym. No, it's not going to happen. There's going to be another thing. So unless you just give up, there's another thing right behind this. And so again, I'm not saying that to diminish the effort required, and I'm not saying that to make anyone feel bad about where they're at in their season in life. I'm actually saying that to highlight the opposite, that now is the time to work this muscle and to recognize that what you're doing right now and the opportunities that you're taking advantage of and the things that you are accomplishing are worth celebrating, because there's literally no better time. There's not going to be a season of respite. There's not going to be a time when this makes any more sense and is any easier than right now. And so I don't want to fall into that kind of the right time narrative, because in my experience, both personally as well as talking to thousands and thousands of people over the years that are trying to push themselves towards their full potential and accomplish great things, it doesn't happen. Right? We get done with this busy time and this thing that feels inconvenient and this time period where it's more challenging. And then there's another thing, right? And ultimately, I think that's an opportunity. Great. I hope that when I'm done with this thing, there's something else behind it. I hope that I am pushed, and I hope that I continue to have opportunities that push and drive me to recognize what it looks like to show up in alignment with my best self. I don't want to be lazy. I don't want it to stop. I don't want to rest on my laurels. I don't want to be in a season where I'm not pushed to be clear and focused and concise in how I show up in the world and the energy and effort that I put out. So great, let's keep it coming. But again, we got to celebrate. There's no version where it gets easier if we want to continue to push ourselves. So I want to set the baseline there. Again, why is it important to celebrate? Because now is the time. Because it's a muscle that needs to be worked, because there literally is no other time, there's no other opportunity, there's no other thing. What we have is right now, and we need to recognize what we've accomplished so that we can continue to push forward. So let's talk about a construct here that I think really helps clarify the importance for celebrating our wins. And that is, it's called the arrival fallacy. And this is not my idea. This comes from an author, Brad Stulberg. For those of you that are consistent listeners to this show, you'll know that I've quoted him a lot. Him and his writing partner, Steve Magnus, are great folks. I'm fans of them. I think the work that they put out in the world is really, really stellar. And Brad talks about the arrival fallacy. And what that is that it's the concept or the fallacy that when we arrive at the destination that we've set out, when we reach the goal that we've put out on the calendar, we do the thing, we accomplish the race, we get to the weight that we want, we launch the business, we make a certain amount of money, we insert whatever that is for you. When we get there, it is not all it's cracked up to be. It actually doesn't scratch the itch. It actually doesn't feel like we thought it was going to feel. Because what happens is, lo and behold, when we get there, we want something else, right? It's actually not enough, right? We get to our weight loss goal, and what do we want? We want a different body composition. We want to be stronger. We want to be faster. When I launch the business, what do I want? I want it to be more successful. I want a bigger team. I want different clients. When I finish the race, what do I want? I want to do another race. Could I have done it faster? Could I have been more prepared? Could I have done X, Y, and Z? Is there something harder, longer, different, right? It's always going. And so there is no version, again, where we get there and we are truly satisfied. Satisfaction starts from within. We have to be satisfied in the process. And so the arrival fallacy, I think, is a really great way to think about why it matters to be engaged in the process and why it matters to celebrate our wins, because there is actually not a win where we think it's going to happen. Right. So when we put off celebrating the small wins, we do that because we don't want to give ourselves credit for the thing that feels like a smaller version or a diminished version of our big goal. And we also do that because we imagine that when we reach that big goal, it's going to be amazing and it's super sexy and it's fanfare and it feels great and it has all the trappings of the things that we imagined. And the fact of the matter is that science tells us that is false. It's not as good as we think it's going to be. We get there and it's okay, right? Great. We did it. We might feel good about that. We can certainly celebrate that we did it. But just on the other side of that, there's really not anything, right? On the other side of that is another goal, another thing, another whatever. And so we don't want to put so much weight on this carrot at the end of the stick, because the way that Brad describes it is that the victory is always 10 yards down the field, right? We get to the 10-yard mark and it's 10 more yards. And we get there and it's 10 more yards, and so on and so forth, forever and always. The goal is always moving. We're never quite getting there. And that really is what it feels like ultimately when we hang our hopes and dreams on these big goals. When we put off celebrating now the things that we have accomplished and recognizing where we're at and taking a moment to understand how that should inform how we feel and how we perform and how we continue to find motivation and drive. When we put those things off, we're putting them off, or we're deferring them because we think that the thing down the road is going to feel much better. Well, I promise you, when you cross the finish line, it's not going to feel as good as you thought. And there's going to be something right on the other side of that. So again, now is the only time. And again, not that we can't celebrate, not that thing's not going to feel good. It's just not going to solve all your problems. It's not going to feel as good as you thought. And if you're growth oriented, if you're a high achiever, if you're someone who wants goals, there's another goal, right? So you're not going to stop there. You're going to set another goal. Again, what does it look like to push myself a little more? Is there another opportunity? So the arrival fallacy for me really helps to contextualize why does this matter at all? And why should I not just focus on the end goal? Why should I not just focus on 1 year down the line, 2 year, 3 years, 6 months, whatever the timeline? And again, it's because it is a fallacy. We get there and it's just not what we thought it was going to be. And that's okay. I think also that helps take a tremendous amount of pressure off of this outcome-based thing. Again, when we put all our hopes and dreams in that one thing and think that that's going to provide all we need, we're going to be able to ride that wave until the next high point, the next benchmark, and the next big goal, that puts a tremendous amount of pressure on that one singular moment in time, right? The one race, the one promotion, the one amount of money that you have in your bank account, and the fact of the matter is that one thing can't carry all that weight. There's lots of things that support that. Those are the wins along the way. That's why we have to celebrate them. We have to recognize the things that are propping up what it took to get to that end goal. And I think, again, it helps to just soften the blow of what happens when we're on the other side of those goals too. Because when we put too much weight on them, there's a massive blowback on the other side of that where we're not sure what to do. Or when it doesn't satisfy us in the way that we thought or had hoped, then we feel kind of shitty about it, right? Oh, I thought that was going to be better. I thought I would feel happier. I thought I would, whatever it is. It's okay. It's just a benchmark, right? It's one thing en route to another thing. And so again, the arrival fallacy for me helps to contextualize and kind of soften the weight that we put on any one thing, and just know that it is the cumulative impact of small decisions and small wins along the way that lead up to nice benchmarks that are nice high points, but that is en route to other things. And again, that's life. I hope so. I hope I have lots of opportunities to continue to set goals and continue to push myself, and these experiences and opportunities compound into other things. So think about the arrival fallacy again. I love that just kind of concept that Brad used, and it's been really helpful for me in thinking about just how to contextualize all this and why it's important to kind of expand my thinking when it comes to goal setting and celebrating and looking for opportunities for celebration along the way. Next is celebration and happiness is really a choice. So we're piggybacking on similar concepts, but I want to continue to kind of break this apart and provide as much context as possible. So when you're trying to do this for yourself, you have some information to go on, right? You're not just listening to me and saying, well, yeah, okay, that's fine, Taylor, but why the hell does that matter? I want to arm you with some information that hopefully helps contextualize this in your own life, so you can see how this can actually show up and how to put it into practice. So there's
there's no thing or location, there's no endpoint in time where you'll be happy. So very much in the same vein as the arrival fallacy is kind of the deferred happiness fallacy. And I just made that up on the fly, but we'll go with that. So the deferred happiness fallacy is this idea that, well, if I just suffer now, if I just put my head down, if I just grind it out, that I'll be able to be happy eventually. I'll be able to celebrate eventually. If I can just get to this point, if I can just do this thing, if I can just put up with enough shit for long enough, then eventually I'll be able to crawl out from underneath it and I'll be able to be happy. And for anyone who's tried that approach, myself included, I think we can all admit that does not work. There is no end location where that gets better. There's no point in time where you have enough feedback and you get enough input to shift your mindset into being happy and celebrating. If you're not happy now, no thing that you do down the road is going to change that. If you're not satisfied with what you're accomplishing now, if you're not able to celebrate that, if you're not able to recognize that the sum total of effort to get to where you're at right now is a massive accomplishment, and that took a tremendous amount of effort, if you're not able to recognize that, you're not going to see that down the road either, because it's just going to take more of the same, right? Consistency compounds. And so what gets you to where you're at right now is ultimately what's going to get you to where you need to go. And so if you don't see the value in it right now, you're certainly not going to see the value when you continue to do more of it and you get to some finite point, right? Again, some outcome-based goal. And that's why it really is a choice. We have to decide that right now I'm going to celebrate. Right now I'm going to be happy with where I'm at. So it doesn't mean that we don't strive for more. It doesn't mean that I don't have big goals. It doesn't mean that I, hang it up and give up and say, I'm happy, I'm good. No, I think we can be high achievers. I think that we can push for more and that those realities can exist in the same space, right? That we can be happy, we can celebrate and also be striving for more. I think that's a big piece of the puzzle, is recognizing that those two truths exist in the same world. You can hold each of those in either hand and have the recognition that, again, you can be happy right now. That is a choice. And if you don't acquire that skill now, if you don't shift your mindset to that space now, the thing that you're thinking is going to make you happy down the road is not going to accomplish that. I promise you. Ask me how I know. And then also knowing that within that recognition, within the ability to be happy, within the ability to celebrate and look for wins and opportunities for where you're at right now, what got you here, you can also want to be somewhere else. You can also want to be someone else, right? I want to be more fit. I want to be more successful. I want to be whatever the thing is. That's great. But again, it's the skills that you're accruing right now. It's the mindset right now that ultimately is going to get you to that place in a way that elicits a version of yourself that you're actually happy with, that elicits a version of yourself that you can actually celebrate. So do not defer your happiness now for some eventual version that actually isn't going to exist. Because I promise you, if you don't work the muscle now, if you don't develop that skill mentally, emotionally, it's not going to happen when you get down the road. And if you can't celebrate the process, getting there won't change anything. So again, like, process is all we have. What you have is right now. You have today. You have your ability to show up and to commit to the process. Again, at the risk of sounding like a broken record, consistency compounds. All you have is the ability to do today what you can do, which is very similar to what you did yesterday, and recognize that day after day, that will stack on itself and it will elicit the results that you want. But the process is all you have. You can't rush it. You can't get to the end goal faster. You can't get to fitness faster. You can't build your business faster. You have to keep showing up, right? And again, so you have to engage in the process, and you have to recognize that you actually showing up for that process is meaningful. And the small, seemingly insignificant benchmarks along the way need to be weighted the same as the big thing at the end. And I really believe that. And it's something that's been massively impactful for me is to see the small wins along the way equal to or even greater than sometimes the big thing, right? The big, shiny, cool thing, right? Like behind me here in my office, I have a bookshelf full of belt buckles that I've gotten from ultra distance races and winning bike events and ultra marathons and all these things. And that's fine. It's the ability for me to wake up at 2 a.m. and go for a long run with good friends of mine, training in preparation for those events that I see is equally important and equally as much of a win as the belt buckle. Right? It's the ability to continue to stay, consistent with strength training. It's the ability to continue to carve out time to eat dinner with my wife amidst a busy schedule and big training goals and right? Like whatever those things are for you, I really want to encourage you to see those things as equal or greater than the big thing at the end, because I genuinely think that that's what it takes to continue to be engaged in the process. The process has to be the win because it's all we have. The race might get canceled. The business might fail. You might not get the promotion. You might not, that's fine, right? All I have is the process. I can keep coming back. I can commit to that thing and know that the sum total of the effort will yield results eventually. I have to stay focused and I just have to come back tomorrow and the next day and the next. And if that thing goes off and it happens, great. What a nice, cool benchmark. If it doesn't, that's okay too. So the process is what we have. And I know that that gets talked about everywhere. And that's become a very sexy thing to kind of wax poetic about, is the process and this and the grind. And I'm really not advocating for it through the lens of like heroic work ethic, right? What I'm advocating is that process is as worth celebrating as anything else en route to your full potential, en route to the goals that you have, en route to the big thing on the calendar that you're excited and it's keeping you motivated. We got to celebrate the wins along the way, and the process is really where that's found. And I think we just got to find excitement in that. And again, that celebration and that happiness in that process is a choice. And if you don't find it now, it's certainly not going to come to you at some later date when you get to a point that you've imagined would actually elicit that. So focus on that now and work that muscle, because it is the thing that will make all of this worthwhile. And last, what does it take? So what does it take to get to a place where you can celebrate your small wins? And because it's not easy, and I'm still not good at it a lot. And again, that's so much of why I'm here and why I do this podcast, is because I want to flatten the learning curve for people. I want to share my own experiences, and historically, this has not been something I'm great at. I try, and I recognize the value in it, and I remind myself every single day to look for those opportunities. Some days I miss it, but I know that I can get back on track, and I'm working to develop those skills and tools so that I can enjoy the process and so that happiness is found on the daily versus these big benchmarks. Because I've not done that, and it sucks. It's miserable. So let's try together to figure this out. So what does it take to be someone that celebrates the small wins? First, I think it takes the right people. You got to have people around you that recognize why that's important and that even remind you to celebrate your small wins. Celebrate the process. Say, hey, that's a massive accomplishment. You should celebrate that. That's super cool. No one else is doing that. You should celebrate that. You should, right? Like someone that recognize, I'm lucky enough to have a few of those people in my life, and I can't tell you how often it happens that I do something that I don't take any time to celebrate, and I immediately move to the next thing. And those people come in and check me and say, wow, that's super cool. Like, did you celebrate that? That's awesome. Did you take some time to celebrate that? No, of course I didn't. Okay, let's do that. Right? So people really matter. I think if you don't have somebody in your circle, in your close circle, that is reminding you to celebrate, find that person, right? Because if you are not someone who celebrates your wins naturally, you need a support network. And even if you are someone who celebrates them naturally, you still need that person. So people matter. Next is recognizing that wins and opportunities are everywhere and they're always happening. So again, part of this is the recognition and the true belief that there are things happening today that are worth celebrating. Now, they might not be the end goal. They might not be the big sexy thing at the end of the line, but something is happening today that is worth celebrating. It's a conversation. It's a connection. It's an action. It is you getting out of bed and going for a walk. It's playing with your kids. It's cooking dinner at home. It is drinking enough water. Whatever it is, something is happening today that is worth celebrating. So the recognition that that is always happening, there are always opportunities that are worth celebrating, is a really big step in the direction required to work this muscle. You first have to believe that there's something worth celebrating. And it's there, I promise you. But again, you have to be willing to recognize that those wins are equal or greater than the big thing at the end of the line. So there is a recognition there and then an acceptance that this thing's worth celebrating and they're happening. And let me take a minute to do that in a way that's meaningful. Next is to focus on progress over perfection. Perfectionism kills your ability to celebrate and be happy. Let me say that again. Perfectionism is killing your ability to celebrate and be happy. I see it every single day. And the fact of the matter is that perfection doesn't exist and progress is always better than perfection, right? So sometimes good enough is good enough. So don't let the thing being perfect keep you from doing anything at all. And this, if there's one thing that I could help people understand and overcome, it would be perfectionist tendencies getting in the way of making progress in the direction of their goals. Your goals don't care about perfection. Your goals care about consistency. So do that. Focus on progress and make sure that perfection doesn't diminish the work that you're doing right now, right? Make sure that if it's not perfect, that's okay. You showed up. Consistency compounds. Progress is better than nothing. And that, again, that plays into the recognition that there's something to celebrate to begin with. Because if we imagine a world where the only thing that's worth celebrating is when it's perfect, when it's finally done, when we showed up perfectly in alignment with exactly how we thought this day was going to play out and exactly how the workout was supposed to go and exactly how you're supposed to feel and all these different criteria. Firstly, that world doesn't exist. There's no perfect day. So perfection is elusive, but also it's going to keep you from being in a mindset that allows you to celebrate because you're going to imagine that thing it's not valuable. It wasn't perfect, so it's not worth celebrating. It didn't go exactly how I planned, so it's not worth celebrating. It doesn't matter. It is. Perfection is not obtainable, and you're letting perfection get in the way of progress. Do the thing. Take action. Get it done. Get it done to the best of your ability and show up and then celebrate that progress and don't let perfection stand in your way. Next is consistency over intensity. Right? So consistency matters more than intensity. This is not a sprint. Again, life keeps happening. On the other side of this goal is another thing. On the other side of this busy season is another busy season. More stuff, more things, more responsibility, more. And again, I am not saying that to make life sound relentless. What I am saying is that there is always another thing. There is no season that is more right than right now for you to do the thing that you're talking about doing and to feel good about it. It doesn't get easier. There's more stuff, hopefully, right? Because hopefully we continue to live. When there's not more stuff, we are dead. So consistency over intensity. It's not a sprint. Settle in, right? When we recognize that grand heroic efforts rarely move the needle, but consistent efforts stacked over long periods of time is actually what creates the success that we want, specifically sustainable success that doesn't lead to burnout and if we're talking about fitness, injury and overuse and depression and anxiety and all the things that's what matters, right? Consistency over long periods of time. I'm talking decades. Settle in. It's not a sprint. And the reason that's important is because if we think that it's a sprint, we think that we can put up with bullshit for longer than we really can, right? We think that we can continue to put our head down. We can continue to keep our nose to the grindstone. We can continue to not be happy and take it on the chin because in pretty short order, this will all be over and I'll be able to celebrate. It won't be. It's not a sprint. Consistency over intensity, right? So again, relax the pace. That's why it's important to celebrate now because it's not going to be over soon. Hopefully we get tons of other opportunities. What more can we do? Let's explore. I don't want to sprint to the finish in 6 months. I want to settle in for 60 years. So consistency over intensity, that's what it takes. So to recap, what do you actually need to do this? You need the right people. Find people that help you celebrate. First and foremost, if you don't remember anything else that I talked about, find your people. Somebody that recognizes when you have a win that's worth celebrating on a daily basis. And then be in that person's life and make sure they're in yours. Making sure that you recognize that wins and opportunities are happening every single day. There's something to celebrate. And you have to believe that, or otherwise you're not going to see it and you're going to keep focusing on the outcome. And again, you're going to be really tired and you're going to be miserable because it's also not a sprint. So that's really like when we recognize that there's something worth celebrating, it relaxes the pace. Great. I don't have to sprint. I can take a breath. Finally. Progress over perfection. Don't let your perfectionist tendencies get in the way of doing something. Perfection doesn't exist. So just make steps in the right direction. Celebrate that progress. Be committed to it and recognize that what you're doing is valuable and it actually is a much more positive step in the right direction than you're probably giving yourself credit for. Last, certainly not least, consistency over intensity. Settle in. It's not a sprint. And when it's not a sprint, we get to celebrate. It's not a mad rush to the finish line where we finally get to relax and take a breath and be the person that we want to be. We get to be that person right now. Because again, at the finish line, the arrival fallacy, going back, it's not as cool as we thought it was. It's not going to deliver what we thought. And so recognizing that allows us to settle in and relax the pace. It's not a sprint, consistency over intensity. So I genuinely hope that this helps. If you are someone who struggles to celebrate your wins, I hope that you will put some of this into action in your own life. I hope that you will work the mental muscle of figuring out what this actually looks like in your own life, because it is massively more fulfilling when you're not just singularly fixated and focused on some end point when you will finally get to celebrate all of the work that you're putting in and you can recognize your wins along the way. It changes the dynamic. It changes the game. It changes the motivation that you're looking for. It changes the anxiety and depression and all the things that you're feeling and the relentless quality of what you're going through. It changes all that because you get to celebrate. You get to recognize that what you're doing is actually doing something. It's not all a waste of fucking time, but it's actually eliciting results. It is creating wins. You just have to recognize them and give yourself the opportunity to celebrate them. And that changes the dynamics. It changes what the process feels like for you. It changes the intensity. It changes the people that you're able to have in your life that help you celebrate. So again, this comes from a genuine place. I have been really, really bad at this for most of my life, and I'm trying to be better. And I want to help each of you celebrate what you're doing and recognizing that the consistency that you're putting in right now, your process is worth celebrating. And I hope that you'll take it upon yourself to actually recognize that in your own life so that you can enjoy the process and actually far exceed the goals that you've put out there. Because what that really does is it holds us back, right? It keeps us confined because it doesn't allow us to really reach, because it feels so relentless, because we don't enjoy it. It's not fun. And so I hope this helps. As always, you can find us on enduranceminded.com. So love to hear from you as always. Share your wins, share your struggles, what resonates. How can we help? What can we weigh in on? Enduranceminded.com. You can scroll to the bottom. You can leave us a comment. You can also listen to all of the Endurance Minded episodes on the website, as well as everywhere that you listen to your podcast. Last but not least, my ask is always rate, subscribe, share this with a friend. So rate this on your favorite podcast platform. Subscribe on your favorite podcast platform. We'll drop a new episode every other Tuesday. You'll be alerted so you don't miss anything. We are rounding out this year with some amazing guests, some really cool episodes, and I'm really excited to get this content out in the world. So don't miss out. Make sure to subscribe. And then lastly, share your favorite episode or this podcast in general with a friend that you think it could help, it would resonate with, that you feel like would be connected to what we're doing. I can't thank you enough. Our community is incredible. Your support means the world. And we'll see you next time on Endurance Minded.